diversity becomes one of the first things that everybody resists. Because I don't know this person, I don't want to hang out with kids. But in a disaster, it doesn't matter, does it? No. So one of the first things that we have to learn is your teamwork in a disaster situation is how we set our minds right now in this particular training. The first thing you need to know is what is the structure you're working with. You have Homeland Security. Homeland Security has the contiguous United States. Each state has a series of counties. California has 58 counties. Each county has a police department, fire department, and basic infrastructure. Okay? Those are the things that you need to know as a trainer so that you, or as a resource to your community, what do you have for phone numbers for emergencies in a large disaster? So part of your structure, you need to know basically what is the primary mission. Neighborhood emergency training is designed to provide you the basic information to prepare for a disaster. Basic. You don't have to do anything great. What you do is you have a checklist in front of you. Your first survival kit right now is your checklist. Because once you take the time, which is going to take you a little bit, and a little bit of an expense, once you take the time to put this checklist together, you have your beginning, what's called go kit. If we here now are in an emergency and we had to go, what do we take with us? How much water a day does a person need to have for survival? Gallon of water a day. All right. This is easy. This is easy. If you, yeah. The point is, it's just like the 5th grade class, though. I cannot overemphasize the importance of this age group. Because it's now when you start, within the next 10 years, they're getting older and more prepared. Whereas I am looking to do other things with my life. No. Yeah, in an emergency situation, though, you must be immediately prepared and what's called self-contained. We have handouts in English, Chinese, Spanish, Russian, Arabic, and Hmong, and Vietnamese. No excuse not to know the information. That's important for your family and the people who live next door to you. Think left and right, just like you're sitting here for your diversity. Think left and right for the people who you would be in a disaster situation. So, assist the community members in developing, practice, and maintain personal emergency plans. So while you're standing at the bank, waiting to get to the teller, ask somebody how many gallons of water do they need a day to survive. It's one way to break the ice. But it also allows you to recognize differences of opinion. What is an emergency to me may not be an emergency to you. My reaction is different. So why should I be mad at you because your reaction is different from mine? As opposed to me trying to see the big picture. So what becomes important here is that you assist the community. This is why we're looking for you to sign up today to be a trainer, so that you talk to other folks in the neighborhood about training individuals or just your family. And the idea is, when it happens, you have no recourse but to survive. I happen to be lucky enough to be in the Loma Prieta earthquake in Oakland. I was teaching at Calvin Simmons Junior High School. And by the time I got home, there was a World Series that night. When the earthquake happened, the first thing everybody did was knelt down and went back into their house. That was the first action. The second action everybody took was they headed for the grocery store. The first thing that went off the shelf was the alcohol. After that, it was rice, beans, stuff like that. But the bottom line is, everybody has the same reaction. So if you have preparation, you're not caught in the crowd at the store fighting each other to get something when you are self-contained at home. That is the most important thing that you can understand right now. And children, make sure your parents recognize that self-contained is the key word for survival in an emergency situation. You should be able to survive for 73 hours at your house. If there's a chemical spill, if there's a radiation spill, you have air bases around here, you've got trains, you've got freeways, interstate, your potential for disasters that require you to self-contain or to move inside and seal your house, okay? To where you don't go out for the next 3 days to where it's clear, or you know because you have your quick radio and you can find out, or your battery radio, right? The electricity's out maybe. What you're trying to do, again, is become a resource to your neighbors and your family, as well as become self-contained. When disaster preparedness goes downhill, chaos results on the street. The reason I know this is the Loma Prieta earthquake. Now here it is in Oakland. The Cypress Freeway fell down on itself. So what happened? The utilities had to start moving in, which means you cut off avenues in the street. A lot of adjustments had to be made. A lot of people got angry because they had to make adjustments in this emergency. They were only thinking of themselves. They were not thinking of the big picture. In order for you not to worry about thinking about yourself, have your 73-hour packet prepared. This way, you now become a resource to the community because you're already contained. You're already prepared. So you become healthy. Okay. Evacuation procedures, preparing the possible flu pandemic. You know, what can we say about a flu pandemic? I happened to go to the Philippines. I was going through Taipei at 4 in the morning in the airport, and they were having everybody wear the mask, as you recall. But as you walk through the airport, the humidity was at 98%, and you can smell the mold. So, where's your preparedness in terms of civil defense? How do you protect the neighborhood? So you should have awareness. You should be talking about this. Each one of you who are here today need to be talking to somebody else about what we talked about here. This is called grassroots. Because if you don't talk to somebody else about it, they're not going to read it, they're not going to pick it up on the news because there's other more exciting news to happen. This hasn't happened yet. The idea is that you are proactive. What's the Boy Scout motto? Be prepared. Bottom line, folks. Okay, so your evacuation procedure, how many people know who's responsible for the maintenance of our highways? Okay, great. Everybody doesn't know that. So the people who said Caltrans, you are now a resource to those folks. That's another thing you can talk about at the bank while they're taking your money. Things that you need to be able to discuss with people of all races, about the money, because the floodwaters don't care how much you got in your wallet.
That's true.
It doesn't care whether you got a master's degree from Davis. So, sheltering in place means you're at home. You seal your house. There's chemicals or biological matter coming at you. What you want to be able to do is seal off and protect your family. And you need to have your friends know that, so they're not knocking at your door trying to come in and hang out and eat your food. They should be prepared also. So you have to remember, there's two sides to this coin. You prepare and help other people prepare. People who are not prepared, you take Katrina as an example, those people who are left are now complaining. Those people who are left who are now complaining alienate themselves with the system that they depend on. You alienate yourself only because you were not personally prepared yourself and you're waiting for somebody else to do something for you. So what you need to do, kids, get your 5th grade class having a project so all these folks can read about it in the newspaper, and I'll help you. The biggest thing that everybody's talking about nowadays, again, is terrorism. Why does terrorism work? Because we're all here trying to learn something simple here, and we got another guy out there who wants to do damage to you. But while I'm focusing on you, we all experience your pain. So while we're experiencing your pain and the damage I do to you, we are all terrified. We all have to take precautions. We all have to react to something that happened to one person because of something that happened across town. So recognize terrorism, to deal with it as it happens. It's like they say in karate, don't defend before you're attacked, because then you are the attacker. Okay, so what you're trying to do in terrorism is you have to be able to respond appropriately. And that becomes the most important thing. We got the art of war from Sun Tzu, which says, kill one, panic thousands. Remember that while everybody's running amok, don't you be the one running amok with them. Try to hold your ground and understand the situation from the big picture as long as you are not bleeding. If you're not bleeding, you now have to be a resource to somebody else. Okay, Oklahoma City is an example, the World Trade Center is an example, the Pentagon is an example. But you know, because of our news media, we can blow up the Brooklyn Bridge and people in Alaska will be afraid. Because our information is so fast, it's in real time. So don't let that be the part of the sword that cuts you in the sense of getting real-time information. Take a look out the window and see what's going on around there before you panic. Before you get mad at somebody next door because of what country they did 10,000 miles away. Don't throw rocks at Safeway or something, okay? But don't buy gas from Venezuela. All right. What is terrorism? And this becomes important. It becomes important because if I don't know you, how can I trust you? Trust is the very factor, the reason I asked you to look at each other, because in a disaster, you're going to look at each other in diversity, and you're going to have to trust each other. Now, how many people saw the movie Poseidon Adventure, where the ship flips around, everybody's in the boat, they all got to survive, young and old? What you want to know is, what is your skill? What did you do for a living? What kind of work do you do? What kind of things can you contribute to this room if we were isolated right now and had to survive? How many cooks we got in here? How many doctors do we have in here? How many medics, emergency training, police officers who've had first aid and CPR training? The more I ask, the more we become a team. Are we seeing this? Because if you're seeing that, in an emergency, you have to take the lead, or at least cooperate. You don't have to take the lead. All right, I'm really going to do that. You learn to work with each other, and that's why you have diversity. That is what the strengths of America should be, in that wherever you are from, and if you're not from here, but you're bringing from there, here, some skills and some knowledge that contributes to the collage or to the makeup, paper mache in you guys' case, the collage of what America is about. But in a disaster, you have more strength than you think when you take heed to the strengths of each individual in your survival team. And this is why you need to work on what's called problem-based learning. The problem, what do we have here in Sacramento for problems? We have a possible earthquake, flood, levee break, airplane crash with chemicals, anything else? A terrorist attack on the Folsom Dam, of course. So you got 5 potentials right there to where each of us can be isolated. And in that isolation, we must depend on each other for survival. And the skills that you may have learned for keeping rice in the farm paddies of Thailand may be appropriate in Oak Park, so that your self-contained kit has green rice or brown rice or something like that, as opposed to Minute Maid rice. Survival has to do with daily, go home. What is your cultural experience at home? You take that cultural experience at home and you share it with other, like a potluck. Well, you got a potluck in a disaster with people that you can make skills from. So you have to see it that way. And that's the only thing that's going to defeat the terrorism in this country. Otherwise, you will become victim to the rumors and the potential and the fear of some other guy hurting you when you wind up hurting yourself. All right. Next is your family. Do you have contact names and all that stuff at home on your refrigerator? You guys know where your closest fire department is? All right, 5 years old. The idea is If you're in a disaster situation and you need to go to a public place as opposed to going home, where would you go? You head to a school, head to the public library, head to a fire department house. They always got food. Head to the police department, the sheriff department, something like that. So think about how you would survive in the neighborhood and what are you going to have as a meeting place. My daughter goes to Herman Leinbach. I live across the street from Kaiser Hospital. That's only about 6, 7 blocks. But if something happens, where does she go? What does she do? And I'm in Del Paso Heights at the art studio trying to get my little oil paintings sold or something. How does she, what happens? Does she stay? Does she go home because she has a key? But is there a danger getting home? These are the things you got to discuss with your children. You have to discuss this with your dad and your moms, people over 30, because when you grace 62 like I am, you get out in the street and start worrying about what's going on, you lose perspective after about 50 to 60, 70 years old. You begin to lose perspective on the big picture because now I'm vulnerable because of age. I'm vulnerable because of probably I got a bad leg. I'm vulnerable because I'm walking, I'm not driving, I'm not riding. So with those vulnerabilities, what kind of strength can I demonstrate in the middle of a disaster? So work it out with your folks how to go about getting protection. Even if they see the post office, go hang out at the post office. Because you don't want to go to the local bar. Well, maybe the local bar is a place to go. But the idea is, how does a person respond so that they can be centrally located enough to get help? And that's what you're talking about. So this becomes important, your communication plan, because I'm not comfortable if my kid doesn't know this while she's at school and I'm standing here running my mouth. She needs to know this. Okay, fire hazard, shut-off procedures, smell or hear. The first general rule when you join the Army is take charge of this place and everything within sight and hearing. Within sight and hearing. Now think about this, folks. There's a lot of stuff going on around you that you're listening to, but you're not paying attention to. In a disaster, you must pay attention to what you see and what you hear, because what you hear, everybody who was in the earthquake in Oakland, as well as myself, said, dang, man, that highway is really humming today. I was thinking the 17th freeway, the Nimitz freeway, was really humming. Well, it was, but it wasn't humming with cars and trucks like I thought. That was the earthquake coming, and I didn't recognize that. Happened to be in Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma. And I'm sitting at the bar. I was in the Army, so I'm sitting at the bar, and I'm taking it easy and relaxing, and all of a sudden I'm hearing this, and then the sirens go off. Well, if you're from New York City and you hear the sirens, you think of an air raid. But in Oklahoma, you hear a siren, it's a tornado. It's another air raid, but it's a tornado type, okay? So I'm sitting there going, okay, so you figure out, so take sight and hearing as an important thing. How to practice this? When you go to sleep at night, take 5 minutes before you go to sleep and listen. Your sound will translate to image. That's how you take charge of what you hear. Know what you're doing. Know your environment. Because at night, if a disaster happens, it's the hearing that's going to key you first, not what you see. Yes, ma'am? Well, if they got a hearing problem, I'm not going to give you a wisecrack. No, if they got a hearing problem, they're going to have to be sensitive to the people that they are around who can assist them. And that's why we're talk to your families. If they're living by themselves and they got a hearing problem, they should have a TDD telephone type thing that might give a vibration off. I'm not sure what to do. I need to find that answer out there. Okay? It's something that I need to find out. Because folks with disabilities, like I was trying to say about a person who might have an injury and who is at the age of 80 or whatever, that's a vulnerability. Not having a hearing problem, because people are knocking on our door, get out, get out, get out. You're just humming along. So there needs to be a sign outside the door. assisted hearing required. When a community, now listen to this, all you folks who are part of the churches, how do you recognize a vigilant community, which is one of the objectives of Homeland Security, developing vigilant communities? If I walk by a post office, I should see a sign saying Emergency Refuge Center. If I walk by Kennedy High School, I should see a sign out saying cafeteria available for emergency food in earthquake. That's a vigilant community because as I walk, I can see what it is that I need to do in case of an emergency, and we are not at that place yet. Okay? So one of the things you can do within your organizations is start talking about how to develop vigilant communities. It's the big picture again. Because if I'm in the pocket area and I live near Kaiser South and Valley High, where can I go if there's an emergency at this particular point that affects the whole community? There's a fire department, they can go to a mall, wherever people gather. That's the survival technique. So think about that, please. What you smell and what you hear. The smell factor is almost mute anymore. As many different countries as we have here, there's an emergency every day. No, I'm joking. What happens is as many different countries and as many different foods as we have and as many different things that we can smell, it's hard to tell what's an emergency and what's not. But you know smoke, and basically you know fire. You pretty much know gas, methane, stuff like that. So there's some fundamental skills that you still have. Last but not least, shelter in place. The idea is that you are at home. It's the middle of the night. A plane crashes, the levees break, and there's an earthquake all at the same time. So, first thing is your pets will probably tell you because they'll be barking and running around crazy. So, remember to smell and listen? The pets. One of the first things that people said when there was earthquakes was the horses and cows and all that got nervous. For the tornado. The horses and cows for the tornado, for the earthquake, dogs, cats, birds, and stuff like that were acting very fidgety. Pay attention to your animals. Okay, doors. When you shelter in place, you need to have duct tape so that you can seal the doors, because if there's gas, that Rancho Murrieta doesn't work anymore, I'm not sure. But somebody blows it up. Terrorists come and blow up Rancho Murrieta. And there's a vacuum cloud. You get your doors, you got to seal your doors, you seal your windows. Heating and air conditioning, don't use it. Why? Because your heating is going to suck air in and distribute it. So you wouldn't want to distribute the methane gas that's probably outside or trying to get into your house. So fan it. Fireplace. What about a fireplace in an emergency like that? Shut that fireplace off. Unless you need to cook out of it. Because if you don't have electricity, you should have, what should you never, never, never cook inside your house with? Coal. Yeah, charcoal, folks. A lot of folks make that mistake. As you know, it uses oxygen and gives off the other stuff that you can't breathe. The disaster supply kit. How many people have a first aid kit at home? So there is a significant number of folks not having a first aid kit. How do you stop the bleeding? Pressure. All right, good. Those kinds of skills that I hear from you periodically are skills that can be transferred to other people in the room. Okay, these are the other areas. We want to get you out of here because I get tired of that. No. Inside the home, you want to make sure you have a self-contained home for 73 hours. You want to be able to have a 24-hour go kit in a local backpack.